Hi everyone, welcome to my review of John Demme's The Silence of the Lambs in 1991. So yes, this is a big film, of course, very famous, of course, so popular, of course. IMDb, it's actually still got an 8.6. I say still because everything seems to be going down on that site, gradually, and like everything really, they keep dropping the ratings. This has actually got an 8.6. I believe it's in the top 30, and yes, massive, critic, acclaim. Of course, it won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, and yes, just cited as one of the best films, really of all time. Certainly thrillers. And yes, here's the Blu-ray. Hadn't seen this for roughly 2 years, and of course I'd seen it about probably close to 10 times already now, in total. And probably the first time I saw it was I was about 10 years old, 9 or 10. Of course, heard so much things about this film, and of course it really deeply disturbed me. But it was just such an investing film. And yes, let's not be around the bush. I do agree that it's one of the best films of all time. Certainly among the best. Not top 100 or anything for me, but definitely among the greatest films ever made. This film is remarkable, and yes, just rewatching it again, really just once again I realised how much I love the film. Of course, Jodie Foster plays basically this FBI agent. Of course, she's kind of new to everything. She's just coming out of training and stuff, and she's assigned on this case. The Buffalo Bill killings, of course, that have been happening in the film. And of course, Ted Levine plays, of course, Buffalo Bill, and yes, he basically is this psychotic serial killer. He's completely insane, and he does different things with skinning people, and all this kind of stuff. Very gruesome stuff. Of course, to get more information about this, she's told to meet with Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who's obviously already imprisoned at this point. And yes, you have got prequels, of course, since and stuff, and kind of remakes and stuff of them, and sequels and all this kind of stuff. But this is definitely the only one for me that's great I've seen. I can't remember too much, but Red Dragon, it wasn't bad. Hannibal, I did not like really at all. Of course, just the great stuff in this with the violence was just taken kind of exploitative levels in Hannibal, and it just not a very good film. But yes, this one is where it all began, and it's just absolutely stunning. Of course, yes, Anthony Hopkins plays Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and yes, he's basically, of course, Hannibal the Cannibal. And he's completely, yes, he's very, it's not just completely one-sided villain. He appears on the surface as very charming. He does this to everyone in the film. Of course, from the very opening, kind of sort of 10 minutes or so, it's very clear where this film goes. The relationship between him and, of course, Jodie Foster's Clarice, really is something that's very complex. And actually, as they kind of form this relationship, very complex one, over the rest of the film. And of course, you've got this going on. He's kind of, you could say he's kind of the villain of the film, but you've also got another villain, of course, Buffalo Bill. And of course, it's very kind of a triangle going on here, and just in every sense, this film for me is perfect. It's just from the very opening credits, actually, it just kind of reels you into this kind of atmosphere. This really just wonderful script. The direction is very interesting with this film. There's a lot of close-ups in a very particular way. It kind of adds to the uneasy feel, and actually, once you get the film, really unravels. It's one of the best character studies, of all thrillers. I definitely think it's one of the best thrillers. Certainly, non-Hitchcock thrillers. Definitely one of the best, and it just really is something that is so well acted. Of course, Anthony Hopkins got the Oscar. Of course, he wasn't really on screen for that much time. He's barely in the kind of final act of the film as well, and it kind of veers off. Focuses more on Buffalo Bill in that segment. He's not in it too long, and he did get the Oscar, of course. It's cited as one of the best performances of all time, and for me, so far from what I've seen, definitely his best performance, and yes, one of the greatest villains in the history of cinema. The performance as well, flawless. This is something that is truly shocking, how good the performance is. It really, it's just absolutely stunning. Kind of maybe reminiscent of times of the Joker, Dark Knight, similar sort of traits there, and then some of the nature of it. It really gets into the psychology of this his character, but again, it leaves a lot of mystery. You never really truly know everything about this character, which is great. Of course, he's a highly intelligent kind of character as well. So yeah, it's really disturbing how a lot of it is left to your imagination and stuff. And there was prequels and everything, revealing more about the backstory and stuff. But I think in this film, it's just so perfect how they leave just enough for you to wonder, but also giving a lot, kind of a lot about this character and his kind of traits, the emotions of him. But of course, it's the relationship, with Clarice that kind of brings all this out, and she is such a great character, protagonist of the film, of course. And yes, the really interesting thing as well is how she's kind of this film. It does actually show a lot of how kind of women and stuff are exploited. Actually, a lot by men. There's a lot of shots where you see a lot of the men and stuff in the film, kind of not treating her fair, and just giving her looks. This is heightened by the really extreme close-ups at times. This has got a lot of close-ups in the film. It's a really interesting direction by John Demme, of course, and it just adds, as I say, to the uneasy feel, very claustrophobic, just really intense, and it just works perfectly. You have got some, exterior shots as well, long shots and everything, and it's a perfect blend. When you get into these small locations and stuff, very claustrophobic, but it has got the poetic nature as well, and it's just a wonderful film. I think Jodie Foster, absolutely brilliant in this film. Could be the best performance actually. I think she's also perfect in Taxi Driver. Of course, but this is the main role, of course. This is of course her most famous role, and yes, absolutely wonderful in the film. Really is a great character. One that just kind of naturally kind of comes into the film, done really subtly, and of course, just she just becomes better as the film goes on, and just the more she kind of gets into this case, the more we of course know more about her character, her past. This is one of the wonderful things. It does a lot of the exposition here, adds a lot of emotional kind of resonance with her character. You see kind of flashbacks and stuff, with her childhood and her father, and of course. Anthony Hopkins' character of Hannibal Lecter, kind of brings this out in her. He kind of questions her, while she questions him, and this whole, the whole way, John Demme kind of taps into the psychology of all this. It's just wonderful. It really is something that just makes you, completely kind of invested in every sense. Of course, the way that the music is used as well, it's just wonderful. Of course. Many kind of famous songs as well, and you don't really think of, or at least I don't think of some of the songs without thinking of the film. In certain scenes, of course, with Buffalo Bill, very famous part near the end of the film, and yes, I just think the music is used wonderfully throughout the rest of the film as well. It's such a kind of intense film, and it also feels very a lot of thrillers or action films and stuff when they go big and they introduce, like the military or SWAT teams and stuff like this, it can become very generic, and kind of lose the sense, of investment and actual naturalism. Because this film, it's hard to explain, but this film starts off very kind of personal, small scale, very kind of tight thriller, and then of course the second half opens up. There's kind of, you could say, action scenes in the film, and of course loads of kind of just kind of extras, you could say, in the film, and stuff, but it actually does not lose the sense that you feel. The mood, the tone, everything is so consistent, and of course it ends, although it's a very kind of one of the most intense scenes, it is very so focused, this film, so tight still. It doesn't lose that sense, of course, and just the second half could be even better actually than the first half, although, there's kind of things I love more about each one. Of course, I love the origins of this, this relationship that forms, of Clarice and Dr. Hannibal Lecter. It's just so good, and all the other side characters. There's great comedy in the film. Of course, it's very powerful as well. As I say, Jodie Foster's character of Clarice and how she, even though she's not treated equally and stuff, she still kind of basically, in the end, of course, triumphs. And it's just so good how this comes about. Of course, and just such a great character. The performance is so good. She's so likable, of course, but not a traditional kind of protagonist actually in many ways, of course. And she's a character who kind of just, at first it is just trying to get the case solved, but of course the emotions, as I say, that come out, throughout as the film goes on, really got, connected to her character, so much invested, and just wonderful stuff here. Of course, Ted Levine as well. He is absolutely stunning in the film. One of the most explosive, kind of unnerving characters I've ever seen in the film. This is insane, this stuff. Of course, the performance is just absolutely stunning. You have these two kind of villains in the film, and equally, in many ways, just as kind of disturbing. Of course, when you've got the kind of the stuff with Hannibal Lecter in the second half, very very, of course, big moments. It's just so scary. This is essentially at times a horror film. And it's just one of the most effective when it is a horror film, more than a thriller. This is some graphic stuff. And of course when I saw it as a kid, deeply disturbed, of course. But it's just so well done. This is masterfully directed. The editing is something else. It really is, of course. Just the way as well, the final act, you make the editing plays with everything. It kind of makes you think something is happening when it's not, and then it's kind of a big twist there, and then of course the dramatic irony in many moments, of course, throughout the film. But the final act, is just absolutely stunning. This is a mastery, of many elements that make films, particularly thrillers, and dramas, just absolutely perfected here. Of course, you've just got a film that excels in every aspect. This is not. It's not, kind of. It's not got any flaws at all. It's just, remarkable in its acting, its script, the direction, of course, cinematography, just everything. The use of music, and just these characters, the side characters. Just every side character in the film, is at least compelling. And just Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, Ted Levine, they're also perfect. And of course, it's just a very, very, disturbing film, but one that, it just blends many different things like drama and thriller kind of aspects, and just goes further as well. It really digs into the psychology in such a particular way, that it's just such a unique thriller, in film, and of course, rightfully so. It got 5 Oscars. I'm not sure if I would have, maybe picked that. Yeah, the film to win Best Picture, but definitely a worthy winner, of the year, of course, and just one of the best films of all time. For me, it's fine, of course. Not everyone will like the film, but for me, it's just a film that, it's just, if you like thrillers, it's just a film you have to see. It's definitely one of the best thrillers of all time. Certainly, as I say, non-Hitchcock thrillers, it's really something else. An absolute masterpiece. This is, since I saw it, being one of my favourites. Not top 100, as I say, but, top 200 at the moment. So yes, of course, it edges into the 100% plus tier 3 mark. This film is absolutely stunning. As I said, it's just a wonderful film. It's very, very moving at times, as well as being, just such an investing and intense thriller. You have just one of the most compelling, villains of all time, who's just so layered and kind of, yes, of course, I can understand how it sparked, a kind of franchise, mainly around this character of Dr. Hannibal Lecter, of course, and the prequels and everything that have come. I can see why. None of them are really that great, but it's definitely easy to see because he's such a compelling character. You want to know more, of course. But this film, what it does, with the balance of many characters, it doesn't, as well. It's not a film, that's just plot. Some thrillers, of course, can focus too much on the plot and not give us interesting characters, or even just too plot heavy and not really just have anything else, drama in there. It's just all about the kind of the plot and the unraveling and the twists and everything. This film places its characters at the front, but it works in perfect harmony with the actual the story, the plot, all the kind of the thriller aspects, the unraveling of this case, and just to a truly stunning conclusion. Of course, the very, very final shot. Something about that last shot is just one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. It really is. You just know, something really bad is going to happen. But you kind of, the way it lingers, of course, just on the shot. Of course, you just a slow kind of walk as the credits roll. You kind of lose sight. I always lose sight of the characters there and stuff, and just and I'm always left to wonder what happens. Of course, you know, it's kind of off memory. I think that's followed on in Hannibal. But I don't care for that film really at all. This one, of course, is a masterpiece. One of the most chilling films of all time. It's got great comedy in there, though. Anthony Hopkins, of course, plays this character who's one of the most haunting characters in cinema, but it really brings like a kind of a charming way into it, and of course, great comedy. Sometimes just kind of uneasy, laughter and stuff, but a lot of the time it's just such great comedy. It's actually really effective and doesn't stop him from being so scary. This is it's such a scary film, and of course it's never loses sight of these these personal connections, these characters, of course, and it's got its many big grand moments with the use of music and stuff, but it never loses sight of these characters, of the emotional kind of thing that's going for here. The character studies in this film are some of the most effective I've ever seen, and just the way the parallels, the way you kind of see things in these characters through their conversations with each other. Of course, as the case goes on, you learn more and more about the characters, especially of course Clarice, and of course Jodie Foster. Sometimes it's just kind of an understated performance, but it really is something else. This is just wonderful here. She's such a great protagonist, of course, and the writing, the direction, everything, as I've said, is flawless for me. This is really what you call a flawless thriller. It really is something else. Among my favourite films in the 90s, although not even my top 20, I don't think in the 90s was such a great decade. But I can see, of course, why it's got the Oscars. It's just an absolutely stunning film that has kind of it deals with many kind of spiritual aspects as well. Of course, it involves fate. As well. It just wonderfully, subtly in there. This film can be studied. You can learn so much about this film and how you can hide many things, and stuff, and reveal, how it reveals, exposition organically, and stuff. And yes, the way that, of course, as a thriller, it balances plot and characters, and just very extreme emotions perfectly, of course. Some thrillers can be very flat, but this one really has an emotional resonance, and of course, one of the best films ever made, in my opinion. So yes, of course, on Blu-ray as well, stunning, and just a wonderful film from John Demme. Of course, he passed away fairly recently, and of course, yes, this film. It's just a wonderful film, wonderful direction by John Demme, and yes, highly recommend it, of course. Most people have seen it, but I think if you've not seen it, of course, check it out. You probably won't be disappointed. I can't speak for everyone, of course. But yes, thanks for watching my review.